had a bit of the shower epiphany. So one day I was in the shower and I said, if I die today, will I be happy? And I was like, no. Imagine a world where we don't think anymore because the LLMs are so perfect. Gonna be zombies. We're gonna go back to Neanderthal.
Realizing that the traditionally regarded soft skills, quote unquote, are now core skills, especially in the face of future. It's something that differentiates us between machine.
No bias, great at everything. I mean, why do we have a brain for?
Teachers are our cornerstone for everything. So the parents look to the teacher, the student looks to the teacher. It's guide on the side, not sage on the stage. So they're no longer lecturers. They have to be co-learners.
I also fear that we are taking the youth out of the youth. We are really taking the right of being young people.
Hi, welcome to Signals. I'm your host, Will Snow, and today we're talking about a fascinating intersection between education and AI. We're looking at everything from the Gulf to the global stage, and really looking at economic growth and how it's shaping human potential. Today we have some amazing guests with us, and I'd first like to introduce Dr. Dalla Kakos. Experience in the education strategy and policy. You focus on future-proofing and holistic education for the lifelong learning cycle. And you've worked in, obviously, human capital. And in your 20 years, you've seen transformation initiatives across the World Bank, the Gulf, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Education, Human Development and Community Development Council, the General Secretary of the Executive Council, and the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, KHDA. So I just want to say welcome.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
And our second guest, Chiara Marcati, welcome. Over 20 years of experience from McKinsey, 5 years at leading Quantum Black and scaling AI really, and also looking at building the foundational AI structures for a nation nowadays. On top of that, you've obviously looked at advanced analytics, big data, artificial intelligence, and really transforming organizations to where they need to be today. So welcome to you too.
Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me.
So my first question is for you, Chiara. If you think about where you've come from and your background and your experience, you've now the Chief AI Advisory and Business Officer at AI71. Why have you made that shift? And what is the gap in the market? And why is everyone really talking about sovereign AI at the moment?
Well, thanks, Will. You asked me many questions in one. Let's try to unpack it. First, why the shift? I think for me personally, I arrived at the moment in my life where I felt a call to action. I spent 20 years in consulting, looking at the world, let's say, a bit from the side and helping leaders and advisors. And I spent a lot of time in AI and I saw this transformation happening and me being there, but not really being there. So I said, okay, now is the time to jump and enter into the action. So that's what pushed me to make the shift. I always say I had a bit of the shower epiphany. So one day I was in the shower and I said, if I die today, will I be happy? And I was like, no. And then is where I realized that I had to do something with my life and I wanted to be proud of it. So now I shifted 1 year ago and I have to say very happy for the shift and a lot of action. Now, to your second part of the question and what is the shift that we've seen and the why now and the sovereignty. I think that there has been quite a bit of a change behind the curtain that not everybody has seen, but I think it has been spoken a lot at Davos these days on the definition of sovereignty AI. Before sovereign AI was like, I have my data, I have my data center, I build my fortress, and this is how I control the ecosystem. And then what happened is that if you look at the world, 65% of the infrastructure, give or take, is owned by the US and China, which they became this powerhouse. So then there is, like, if you think about the world, then there is a choice. Okay, are they really owning AI? And is that really sovereign AI? And I think the worlders are like, that's not the play. The play is actually around the governance and architecting around your strengths. So this is where then the UAE became more important. Even France and Europe are starting to develop because people are starting to realize, okay, what's my strength? Well, my strength is energy. Okay, then how do I develop that to build my piece of the value chain of AI and then partner with the other to strengthen. So if you see
Amazing.
where we are going, it's actually we're going to have new player, new leader in the ecosystem that reinvent the definition of sovereignty AI.
Firstly, what a profound moment to like really inflect on where you're going with your life and realizing that you want to have an impact on that. So I want you just to say thanks for sharing that. I think that's beautiful. And I often think too many people go through life and don't wake up to that moment, right? So I love the fact that you're making an impact on the industry. So keep doing that.
Thanks. But you know what? You only live once. You know,
That's
these
true.
teenagers
Hello.
keep on saying YOLO, they're right.
And then, to reflect on your point, really the infrastructure kind of piece. It's very interesting because what you're saying is nations and really private companies are now playing into a global infrastructure play and playing on their strengths, as opposed to just trying to do everything themselves, which makes a lot of sense. Keeping on the same topic, Dr. Dalla, we talk about smart systems, but you focus on smart people. From your vantage point, does the current education model really serve humans, or is it still serving an industrial era economy?
In terms of the definition of learners and students, it's changing. And what does quality of learning mean? So that's changed from the industrial era to now. If you look at, for example, standardization, efficiency, predictable outcomes, this is all traits of an industrial era, if you will. With us, I think we are moving into a new era. I think we are realizing that the traditionally regarded soft skills, quote unquote, are now core skills, especially in the face of future changes and rapid development. It's something that differentiates us between machine. It is vitally fundamental for understanding and learning. So in terms of what we're looking at, I think we are moving into a new sort of definition of what does a student need to learn. And that is more about resilience, agency, which is about them thinking by themselves, them making those decisions, hopefully having those epiphanies in the shower and seeking their own truth. This is something we want to embody as next step because it does need to come more to the forefront. It's always been in the back, but it's become more and more a hard skill, if you will.
The next question is positioned to both of you. If you think about some of the numbers coming out, we see McKinsey saying that 30% of work hours are going to hopefully be automated by the year 2030. I think that number is probably a lot higher than we'd expect. And then WEF are saying that digital access is going to create 19 million jobs. But at the same time, we are currently displacing arguably another 10 million. Chiara, when you speak to enterprise leaders in the UAE, do you see them being excited about this, or is there a level of anxiety? And Dalla, from your side, students today, they're obviously aware of the job market and where they're heading, but the things that they might be studying right now might not exist in 5 years' time.
So I think that there is no one answer fits all. Maybe let me play back what I see. And it's not just in the UAE, but I think in the broader region, but even globally when I speak to leaders. So I see roughly 3 archetypes. There is an archetype of, okay, I'll buy a box of popcorn and I wait and see because I'm not really sure what is happening. Maybe I do some POC to get going, but I don't know. Then you have the second archetype of leader that those are the visionary that says, AI is not going to bring me cost cutting. I mean, yes, maybe that could be an interesting play, but where I get real impact is new avenue and sources of growth. What does it mean? When they invented the electricity, people didn't get the impact by switching on and off the light, but things like decentralizing the electricity in factory enabled the assembly line. So really avenue that we didn't think of. So there are leaders that are visionary and are thinking, what job can I create to make more money for myself? The third type of archetype, and those are often short-term thinker, they just say, perfect, my HR, my function, I just cut. But the reality, those are folks that will soon move to the second archetype unless they have some pressure of IPO or something that they need to solve for. Because the true value of AI, I'm a strong believer that is actually in creating new GDP growth, new sources of revenue, new value for the economies and the world. Now, having said that, I'm not saying that there will not be displacement. I unfortunately feel that like electricity, internet, there will be displacement, but it's not AI displacing people, but it's AI displacing people that don't embrace AI. Because an element of human augmentation will come and will happen, and it is the true value it comes from.
Yeah, wow, that thought is, it's on us sooner than we think, right? Human augmentation. I mean, we're already seeing forms of it. I suppose having a pair of meta glasses or smart glasses on your face is a form of that, right? Let alone figuring out how it's going to enhance people even further. So it's an interesting time. Dalla, going on to your side of things.
In terms of education.
Yeah,
so in terms
probably
of, I mean, that's very, very relevant to what we're thinking about, because the goal is, of course, always, that question is always on our table of, are we preparing future leaders and future contributors to whatever is there in 5, 10, 15 years? And the answer, that's why we talked about the soft skills, because those are resilient throughout. The ability to relearn and retrain oneself and continuously be a lifelong learner is paramount here. I'm not very scared of AI, because we've seen it with the dawn of the internet. I mean, I'm part of that generation, so it gives you an idea of how long I've been around. But in terms of when the internet happened, there was the same sort of fear-mongering, the same sort of rise, the same sort of discussions, and everyone adapted. And like Chiara said, it blossomed into a few new opportunities. Now, other people that did not upskill or did not retrain in their field, if they wish to remain in their field, they could. It's just that it might not be. A reporter today in the New York Times is very different in terms of their work and how they do their work than a reporter in the New York Times in the 1950s. But does that mean they're no longer jobs for reporting in the New York Times? No. So it's very, very fundamentally different. Now, the students are aware of this more than we are. I think they're less scared as well. They're very aware of the caution they need to take with AI, and that it is not the be-all and end-all of their knowledge. They know, and we try and also facilitate and enhance, that it's human-led. They are the ones leading that change. They are the ones working with it. So there's various degrees. If you look at like lesson plans where they incorporate AI quite well sometimes, there's various degrees of that. One is considered light, where the AI edits. 2 is where the AI can suggest a few topics, and then the student works with the AI to create the body of that essay, for example. 3rd is where the AI does it, and then you review that. And really, it's based on, if you think about it, what the student is good at and what their talents are. They will contribute more and be more interested in being the lead content maker for that. And then if they're really not loving this section of the history class this week, then they might take more lead from the AI and motivate themselves in some other way, using it as a partner for co-learning. So that's the main thing, is that they will accommodate and apply, because we need to remember that our generation is very, very different. They do already define themselves with a duality of analog and digital. That's normal to them. For us, we're like, how can you define yourself like that?
Yeah.
You know, that's weird. And that already feels uncomfortable. They're already very comfortable with that. The point here is that we need to adapt. Industry needs to adapt. Education needs to adapt. And this is what we're trying to do.
Wow. There's so many ways. And I think just bridging the two kind of answers that you guys have given us, one is like looking at the leaders where we are now and the leaders of the future, and how education guides us there. And obviously now we've got this really powerful tool set to help us get there, right? It's a fascinating piece, and I think there's so many ways we can dissect this conversation. One of the more interesting pieces that I've learned is really, it's about mindset and digging deep and looking on the inside, because arguably everything that we know today is going to, on the physical side of the world, is going to be looked after by robotics and AI for us. So that means from a human perspective, we're left with growing your mindset inside, looking at cultural roots, exploring the things that are arguably more important in this life. I love that perception. So, Chiara, moving back to you, the leap from model to market is human, not artificial now. The UAE is obviously moving very quickly, and digital governance and digital government strategy, the AI Charter Vision 2031, we have the hardware and the data centers. Do we have the human infrastructure, the mindset, and are people adopting the right culture?
Well, that's another $100 million question. Thank you, Will. So now let's again unpack what does it mean, the definition of mindset and the human side. I think to make it very simple, I think that there is an element of mindset, right? Do I want to get into it? Do I want to do it? Am I open to the journey? There is an element of, can I do it? Do I have the capability? And then there is an element, is there supporting the ecosystem around me supporting, okay? So I think in terms of mindset, UAE, it's 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
Look at the leader, look at everything. I mean, there are reports everywhere that shows that UAE, it's a tiny country with a huge adoption and a huge vision. UAE, but also the GCC in general. But I think UAE in particular, 10 out of 10. Let me skip the capability, I'll get there later. Supporting ecosystem, I truly believe that this is one of the most supporting ecosystem when is AI. The leader understood that the AI will be a driving force for the country, and the CEOs of the companies, the leaders in the government understood that. So 100% an enabling ecosystem. Now let's stop at the capability. I think the capabilities, we have great talent here, but it's not yet enough. And what I mean is, what is a way to grow capabilities? You have to grow capability to a point that you become a magnet to other capability, and you continue attracting, and then that human together becomes really a great element of capability that keep on circulating around companies, making the whole country grow. Now, in order to do that, you need to have that critical mass and critical scale. And unfortunately, that is, I feel, not yet there. If you look at San Francisco, people take job and go and jump and they go there. Why? Because they know if they can take any leap. Because if that don't work, there is another company and another company, and they can learn from this. And then people look at that, oh, I want to go to San Francisco.
Yeah.
France is doing the same. And I think we have to get there. And I think we are in a good path. We are not there. So going back to your original question, I think we have the fundamentals, which is the mindset, the leadership that pushes the ecosystem. We need to work on attracting the talent side and the capability side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a competitive space, right? And I guess as these professionals move to the region, the education component becomes even more important. And I know that the UAE is really positioning itself as an education hub. And I think, Dalla, this kind of brings us to our next question. We're bringing all this high-tech stuff into the classroom. Arguably, there's a difference between taking textbooks and turning them into PDFs. What does real digitization look like in terms of the education space right now?
So you're right. It's not, EdTech is not just replacing hardware with software. It's more about what the device is used for and how it is used to better the learning in the classroom. So there's something that we look at in terms of what's key there, and that is always to enhance the engagement time that the teacher and the student have with each other, and student to student as well in the classroom, to discuss, to explore, and learn. So that can be facilitated and supported by more technology and AI, definitely. I mean, I always like this example of AI can be something that allows a student to deep dive into a topic when the topic is a little bit more general, because it has to apply to all of those in the classroom. So, for example, if they're talking about World War II, the fact that the teacher mentions they had rations that were in lunch boxes for the soldiers, and that was on holidays they had sort of special edition sort of lunch boxes, the student can say, well, I wonder why. And then they go into it and they check, and they find out that, for example, M&Ms, if you like chocolate, M&Ms, fun fact, was made for war. And in terms of temperate climates, hot climates, that's why there's a candy shell and it doesn't melt in your mouth. It melts in your mouth, not in your hand. That's their tagline. And that stems from them giving it as part of rations during wartime for the soldiers. So this is something that ChatGPT, any LLM can probably give you that history. And that stems from where? It stems from a discussion and a mention from the teacher about World War II in the classroom during history. So the potential, for me, the ultimate potential of devices and AI is, one, to enhance the operations and, to allow the teacher to engage more. So, for example, they don't need to by hand write attendance in class. Something helps take the attendance with them, whether it's AI or an EdTech sort of tool, and that also gets sent to the office right away. This is already existing, but I think that having it as a regular part of how ultimately enhanced the operations of a classroom can be, that's something else that we see potential in. But then you have the other potential, which is the learning and the deep diving and the personalization. We hear it a lot, but what does that really mean? It means the freedom for the student to have the time and the opportunity in class to learn more. It means that the teacher also gets to talk about what they're interested in within that subject a little bit more as well, because then it leads to more engagement. So this is the sort of thing, that open blue sky thinking that needs to be there. I'm hoping we'll see an increase in that based on that.
Yeah. No, I've got a follow-on question for you. Do you think teachers are at risk of being lost? Do you think they still have an important place to fill in the classroom? Because obviously, for me, it's about human interaction and my child not being glued to a screen the whole time or being guided in the wrong way.
Absolutely.
So do you think teachers have a place to play still?
I think they have more of a place than anyone in the school at this point. Teachers are our cornerstone for everything. So the parents look to the teacher, the student looks to the teacher. So they are already serving a role as guides. I think if you look at the traditional way, if you look at a traditional teacher and what they expect to be, it's guide on the side, not sage on the stage. So they are no longer lecturers. They have to be co-learners, but at the same time, guides and mentors. And this is part of what you might see in a university classroom already. And what we've seen in some countries where the schools are doing quite well and the students, you do feel they get to explore interests, is that the teacher is no longer that sage on the stage, and then they give more choice in the classroom, like we were just talking about, that ability to explore. So the human, and not just about learning, they are a cornerstone for emotional learning as well. So social emotional context and the ability to have a safe space and be the child's classroom is paramount to them feeling open enough to learn.
Amazing.
Maybe can I add something?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Because I
No
was
problem.
reflecting on this one. And I mean, if we push what you said further, this means that the teacher will remain there. But does the teacher look like the teacher of today? Because if I reflect at the teacher that I've seen, their primary purpose is teaching. But in reality, I think the definition of teaching will change because it will be about connecting more than teaching, connecting with the child, understand how the child learn, understand what tools, because they exist, you need to provide to the child or to the teenager, whatever age, and your role is really to be super empathetic, go beyond the shell of the kids, go under the skin, understand how he learns, what he wants, and what he's curious about, and just connect him. Because now you are a provider of information. Tomorrow you're not a provider of information. You are the reader of these books, this little kid's book. You really need to open them up and connect them. I don't know what's your experience. So my experience as a parent, so I'm no expert in education. But I noticed that my kid's ability to learn is directly connected with his connection with the teacher. All the teacher where he had chemistry and they understood him because he's a very introverted kid. He was above the bar, exceeding in that subject. With the teacher that would engage with him in a transactional manner, even if last year he was above the bar, exceeding, this year is at the bar. And I'm like, what's happening? And then I realized that is that connection that matters. So now imagine a world where the teacher is not bothered about the teaching itself because that is supported, but has all the time in the world for connection. Not only it will open new possibility for kids, but it also require a new set of skills for teachers. Sorry.
No, I love it. It's exactly that. And actually, it's about the whole talent flagging as well. So they get to explore what they really want to do. And the teacher helps be that cornerstone for that and tell the parents what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, you're making me reflect back on my childhood and when I was going through school. And I can literally remember the moments where a teacher wasn't interested in me and my marks dropped in that subject. Whereas if a teacher was a friend and guided me, I'd get an A.
Yeah, each of us can remember a teacher, hopefully, or two that have become great memories of guides or mentors or somebody that made a difference in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
This is
And we don't remember them for the topic that they taught us. We remember for that connection that they offer.
Exactly.
And imagine now you can remove everything that is on the way. No attendance, no administration, no bureaucracy, just connecting.
This is what they want. They're very overburdened. As teachers, they are burdened with a lot of things. Now, this might seem like we're burdening them also with the mental, social, emotional. So this is the thing. We're not. We are opening it up for the connection and for them to engage more in what they want to pursue. So if they want and they think that the students are interested in something, that connection happens when it's common. Yes, they might be history teachers because they loved something about history, but for them to explore something new with the students, they are learning as well. So that lifelong learning has to play a part in who they are as well. They're not just lecturers that impart and share age-old learning that might be outdated by this point. And you see that a lot sometimes. But that's the thing. They need to keep learning with the student. And also, that whole flip the classroom thing. I love it still. I think the term is a bit outdated, but flip the classroom for the student. So the student gets to teach everybody something. And you see that in a lot of experimental sort of colleges. There's courses, people from industry come in, and they are teachers too. So teachers are imparting new knowledge, but they're also imparting new ways to explore your own interests within that topic, hopefully.
I think society as a whole has a lot to learn from kids.
Yes, very much so. They know they don't need us. We can go and talk to them, and in half an hour they'll have the answers. Hopefully, maybe.
By the way, I feel I'm reliving my life through the eyes of my kids. Like every time I travel with them, I try to purposefully try to understand how they see the world and how see things that I've seen so many times. So I feel like I'm having a second chance.
Lovely.
Of things.
That's so nice.
And I wanted to add one more thing, because this is a great topic, because I think everyone is a parent here, and once you become a parent, education is your business. And it's not just the government or the school, it's your business as well. So it's a deeply, deeply connected topic. But I wanted to say that something that we were talking about with the behavioral science group is that, you know how some people say, oh, we're spoiling the kids now with so many like participation trophies and good for you all the time. We didn't have that when we were younger. We didn't get rewards for every single little sneeze we did.
No.
Are we spoiling them? And that's why they're not achieving, or we're setting them up for failure, because resilience and learning how to fail is really important. So the whole thing was they tracked empathy over the course of 10 years for 12 to 16-year-olds. Over the course of 10 years, the lack of empathy went down 60%, based on many different factors. But they also tracked that they need more dopamine hits on smaller, like many more times, but smaller doses of that. So the encouragement you're giving them is that dopamine hit. Because if you think of a game that they're having on their phone, how many times do they get rewards? When do they start seeing that they're winning at something? Very, very quickly. So that has translated into a mind change. Not just for them, I would say for us as well, in terms of focus, in terms of all of that. But the whole trickle down into that means that we're not really spoiling them. We're just meeting them at their level.
Oh, interesting.
Is very, very important, because that doesn't mean we're taking away from their success. We're giving them what they need in order for them to feel comfortable enough to move on, to learn and be successful.
But the resilience point is still a question I have, because I love all of that, and I love that my kids are empathetic. I mean, they truly reads my mood without me saying it. But I am worried about resilience, because I feel that all the time I fell down when I was a kid and I smushed my face in the floor, that was extremely painful. I didn't build empathy, but I built resilience, which helped me a lot. I mean, I don't have the answer, but I have the question.
No, you're so right. And I think that even if they should fall down and they should try new things, and that's part of it. And then going into, oh, you did a good job. See how you got up so quickly, you know, just trying to find a way to praise them during that, so that it reinforces them. Because later on, when they need to upskill, or they need to face failure of, I'm not good at this job anymore, it's changed, then that's something they need to recognize as a weakness. And then they need to work on it and say, I can do this. I am capable of being ready for this job or another job. So that ingrained confidence needs to happen with the failure that happens too.
Do you think that dopamine hits and the attention span that we have, do you think social media and screen time is a culprit of it?
For sure. I don't think it's the only thing. I think it's also, there's a narrative sometimes that, you know, we need to definitely look into more offline quality time. We need to look into the teacher remaining a human in the classroom. Maybe the teacher aide doesn't have to be, but the more human connection, the better. And this is part of that resilience. The empathy needs to improve. I don't think we should accept the lack of empathy. I think we can accommodate for the increased dopamine hits, but they're smaller also. So you don't need to give them a participation trophy at the end of the soccer tournament when they're like last place. But you can say, you did an amazing job. Look at how you guys worked together as a team when you went and saw that they were, you know, going to go towards the goal. So these little hits are actually, they mean more than a big one. So I think that looking into it, that definitely is for sure a concern.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think really, and I know the ministry is busy bringing out a booklet and initiative on this, and really it's about prioritizing quality offline time.
Yeah, so it's actually Ministry of Education, Ministry of AI, and ourselves, and it's a joint effort. And I truly believe that anything going forward should be joint, because there's so many mutual shared areas. And then that's a parental guide where we do actually recommend a flipped sort of perspective, where let your child, as a student in the classroom already going through and learning about AI in their curriculum, because that was launched in September of this year, let them teach you something and do that quality time. So there was that study in the Early Childhood Authority of Abu Dhabi where they showed that the kids are spending less time than they had predicted online on a device, and they are actually spending more than almost half of that, if not more, with a parent. So the definition of quality time might also be changing a little bit. So you might have offline quality time, which is inherently important. You know, that blue sky thinking, boredom, really important. But then you have the online and the parent is there with you and you are learning together or you're watching a cartoon with each other and there's still that connection. One, you are checking what they're doing, which is in accordance now with the new digital law that's come out. Parents are legally required to monitor their children's online behavior. Yes.
Really?
And surprised?
It's amazing.
No, I'm surprised. You know what? The UAE moves so quickly on legislation. I'm not surprised on that, but it's I haven't heard about it yet. So.
Hopefully, it's in the Gulf News today, but hopefully there will be more coming out. So this is quite high level. It doesn't knock in terms of ages or anything, but yeah, it's something that needs to be done because it's not ignorance. It is ignorance is bliss in a lot of ways, but it's not bliss for your child. And the more you're involved and the more you're aware, the more we can, you know, for example, what was that? I think it was not Roblox. There was one that was very bad and people realized 4 years later.
What was it?
I'm not sure. There was one game and they were playing it all the time. And they were like, actually, this is really, really bad. And it took 4 years for everybody to realize how bad it is. And now people are talking about it as if that's a fact. But that needs to have happened way earlier. Do not let, you know, with all due respect, they do amazing things and they're at the cusp of innovation. But taking behaviors and trying to mold them in order for the child to play more games or be on screen more, this is not where we want that to go. So that's something that needs to be monitored by the parent a lot earlier.
Yeah, but especially because some of these games are actually political tools. I mean, let's not get into that, but some of these games are political tools to humorize violence. So then the sensitivity to violence is less.
The lack of empathy thing there.
But for me, the reason why I'm really happy about this law, for me, every parent is responsible for their children, but I'm very happy for the networking effect because I am very strict. But the parents of the kids around my child is not. So my child indirectly is exposed of all the trash that is out there. So I hope that next time I can hold some parents accountable because the implication that is doing in my family, I mean, everybody is responsible for theirs, but I also have a responsibility to our society as a whole.
Yeah, agreed. It's
Sorry,
very,
we went off topic.
No ways. I think we're right on point. No, we're not. I promise you, we're not. We kind of guiding into this kind of thing of we're using LLMs, we're using agentic agents to help us in our everyday lives. Obviously, this starts affecting people at work, children at school, universities. And when I really think about it, there's an element of bias in these models, right? Some of these models come from the US, some come from China. Do you guys think there's an approach to using these LLMs from a single standalone perspective, or we should be using a multi-LLM approach to these things?
Let me give you the by the book answer, and then I'll give you the other answer that it's my belief. So I think that every LLM, independently from the bias, is built for a purpose, or it's more suited for a purpose. And it's, for instance, Anthropic, they put a lot of emphasis in safety, they put a lot of emphasis in security, and they are great for coding. They're great at everything, but they started too niche in some places, okay? So in general, the advice that we give, it's always, there's no one LLM that fits all. Every LLM has a purpose, and do your evaluation, and whether it's a bias or whether it's technicality to that. Now, the reality is that, and here is my strong hope for humanity, LLM will still continue to make mistakes and will still to hallucinate, because in reality, the critical thinking and the ultimate say needs to remain with the human. Otherwise, imagine a world where we don't think anymore because the LLMs are so perfect, no bias, great at everything. I mean, why do we have a brain for?
Yeah.
So my answer is, it doesn't matter there is a bias, and I hope that bias remains. Please do continue thinking, and please do continue using the LLM wrong for your purpose, so you have to use the brain to identify that. And the fact that there is a bias is normal, because just as a small note, the way LLM works, it gets to the point based on the training data set that they have. And every LLM and every person, every company that has built an LLM has built it on that trained data set.
I totally agree. I think when AI serves AI, it's not serving mankind anymore. So like you say, I don't think there will ever not be bias, right? That's the beauty about humanity, is the fact that we can disagree about things because arguably it moves us in certain directions as opposed to just being robots. So I totally agree with you, Chiara.
No, imagine what happened to the world if we stopped thinking, like for a moment. Look at Darwin law. It was like a disaster.
It will be zombies.
We're going to be zombies. We're going to go back to Neanderthal.
Plus, we'd be playing into that. Like sometimes they don't want you to think. You have to always try and be an original thinker because that leads to innovation and discoveries and inventions. Without that, there will be no progress.
But imagine we really do full back to Neanderthal, and then when we'll not be able to use technology anymore, we say, ooh, and we restart again and we reinvent the internet. Yeah. Maybe we already went through this loop, and this is
I think so.
It's a Matrix style.
I think also people are already, like, I see it. A lot of people are scared to say what they want to say. Like there's a lot of people don't have the voice, and that's arguably by design of the system that we're in. And I think we're in an awakening where a lot of people are starting to become more vocal about what they need to, whether they've been locked to the corporate shackles or just didn't want to talk. I think we're seeing an era where people are so enabled to give their point of view. It's arguably going to be the future of the creator economy and something that the AI economy is definitely going to serve.
Yeah, that's why critical thinking is even more important, because you're going to get triple, quadruple, million of opinions. And how do you know which one you cannot just
Who's
follow
the expert?
wind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
what
agreed.
to choose in the grocery store. I mean, it applies also to the tools. So one of the biggest things we've looked at for the AI strategy is the risk of app bloat. So what's happened is everybody says, okay, we need to incorporate AI. How do we do that? And sometimes the companies come and say, oh, we know how to do that. We'll handle everything. We know what you need. It's us. And we're going to do this. And I say, okay, looks good. How does that person know, that client, that head of whatever development in the whole company, no matter how big it is, how do they know that that's exactly what you need and that it's customized to what you want and what your culture is, and that there's not something behind the next door that's even better? There's an awareness that needs to be promoted. Experimentation is very, very needed because you need to trial and error all of these things, but you need to come at it with a critical thought of, is this what I actually need, or am I being told I need this?
But maybe actually this is an important point, and I think this is the shift that needs to happen into adoption. Because take your problem, a school gets approached by a company, and then they get the fear of the culture and the fit. But the reality, the adoption needs to happen in a different way. The school needs to say, this tool could work. But then they need to take the driving seat in tweaking the context, the fit, and everything they need based on what their beliefs are. And the problem is that at the moment, adoption is a little bit passive. People think AI comes and they just sit and everything happens. And if you look at the leaders, whether they are in the education or in business, those that win is that those that understand that AI is a tool, but the way they put it and bring it in the organization, they train it for the organization, they drive the AI adoption, are those that win. And I think that's, for me, is one of the hardest challenges in the
and in
AI.
a way, the glass box, it's a requirement for anything here. And plus, no longer sort of off the shelf, more sovereign, more homegrown. This makes it, I think, a bit less likely to fail because it already has, as part of that sort of mother data that it's trained on, that fundamental aspect of what we need is in there already. It's not built upon as a second or third or fifth layer.
We're not influenced.
Yeah.
One last question, and then we'll go to 2 closing points from either of you. We haven't spoken about university students yet. Do you think, Dr. Dalla, that the degree has become obsolete? We have institutions like Google, Microsoft, Amazon saying that they are offering, courses that arguably get you from 0 to whatever in 6 months. Where do students still stand at university today?
I actually really like this trend because university degrees are important, but so are everything else. So, that makes the access more equitable, if you will. Micro-credentials sometimes are the only option for people who are located in less developed countries, lower income countries. So I think that especially with lifelong learning being a goal, it's very important to have a hybrid. So yes, universities, but also you're a lifelong learner. You're going to have to get micro-certification, micro-credentials, and add on to that. So the fact that they don't look at, for example, oh, you graduated from MIT, you're in. This is very refreshing and very, very needed because that should not be the only way to get a good job. The fact that the person is, and now they're looking at these soft skills through the personality test. Again, debatable how accurate the personality tests are.
Who wrote it?
Yeah,
That's a bias
how
into
biased
it.
it is. But it is also a way of nodding towards the whole soft skill personality is also very important. So this needs to be definitely better qualitatively assessed in a way, not, for example, operationalized. You know, those are operationalized. Maybe they don't have to be. Maybe an interview looking at personality is very, very important, or how they work in a group. So these interviews are coming more and more often. But university degrees, if you look at the tradition of universities and how higher education began in the US, liberal arts and Harvard and all of that, why are they called Ivy? Is because they actually trained politicians and leaders' families to become the future politicians and take their place. So they had Latin and they had poetry. They had things they could discuss over dinner. It was not about learning. It was about being in a social circle. So when you look at that, and then you look at, well, the industrial model of learning, are we really preparing the children and the students for lifelong success and what their talent is? Because what they're supposed to be doing is making sure they find, academic and non-academic, their potential to be happy and thriving. So that might be music, but it becomes then, oh, you might be a music engineer or a music production person or a composer. Have you ever thought of that? That might not come out in a university or in a school. So the point here is to have as many different avenues for them to study and find their true self so that they can show the industry, who desperately need to catch up, that they have that skill and that capability.
Beautiful.
Can I just say something slightly different? I know
Go
we're
for it.
out of time, but I agree 100% with you. But I also fear that we are taking the youth out of the youth. We are taking their youth away in the sense that
Skilling them earlier.
For me, university was also a time where you grow and you mature. Because in the ideal world, when you are old, you want to work, and when you're young, you want to enjoy life. Now, that's not possible because you need the money to enjoy life. Fine. But if we are using this just to bring kids in the workforce earlier,
yeah.
even we see now 22, 21, and that means 19, 17, I think we are really taking the right of being young people.
Your
away.
fears are
Very
valid. I
interesting.
mean, when we went and we saw schools, they are already preparing their middle schoolers for college and skilling them and internships and award competitions. And it does...
It's happening in primary now. They talk about
because-
career in primary.
And this
Yeah.
is their reaction to, okay, you're sort of more disadvantaged. We're going to make you competitive enough to get in, even if you don't have mom and dad being alumni of MIT or Harvard or wherever. So this is what they're already doing. I would say that the fear of the loss of extra time, when they used to play guitar after school and they say, oh, I love to play guitar as my hobby. I'm in a band after university classes. I go and meet my band. That is threatened by their time online. So maybe incorporating that in to the mainstream school, and then that becomes, oh, this is my talent. It might be math, but it might be guitar. So this is the sort of thing. That infusion of enjoyment needs to happen more in school.
And we need to find, like university, 3-4 years. That 3-4 years we still need to protect. And maybe it's about experiences. It's
Yes.
about a
Trying.
travel,
Failing.
trying and
different
fail,
things.
smash your
Yes.
face. Because otherwise we really feel we're cutting a chunk of experience, and we have and by the way, as a corporate, we're going to have much more immature people that they don't understand decision making, and we're gonna really, I think, it really impact even business outcome if I push it further.
One last line from you each. Just what is a signal that you see in the industry happening now, whether it's tech, it can be in life, economics, technology.
For me, is the shift of attention to adoption. Adoption is becoming probably 2026 buzzword. It's not about our model. It's not about AI as the tool, but it's really adopting it.
Love that. Interesting. And from
for
you,
me,
Dalla?
for learning, to embrace any sort of change, including AI and technology, as an opportunity to enhance engagement and find what that student is really capable of doing and
Beautiful.
talent. Yeah.
Finding your genius.
Yes.
So, thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show. I think
you.
it was a very interesting discussion. I think way too short. I think we could have carried on for another hour or so. But just lovely having you both, and both of your energy, your brain, your minds in the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.